Hello, I hope everybody can hear me okay. Welcome one and all to the In Conversation With series, hosted by the IABM and produced by Rise. I hope that everyone is okay out there in the ether and that you're all safe and well. You're likely to know who Rise are and what they do as an organisation if you've joined this webinar, but just in case you're not, Rise is an award-winning not-for-profit advocate group for gender diversity within the broadcast technology space. It's run by the incredibly talented Carrie Wotton, and it's making such a huge difference for many women across the industry, including myself. My name is Tanya Rai. I was a mentee on the Rise mentoring programme last year, and I'm very proud to say that I'm now a board member of Rise. And today I am your hostess with the mostess, and we are in conversation with Bethan Wilkin, Head of Content Delivery at ITV. Bethan and I will chat for around 40 minutes or so and then allow 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you do have a question, then please pop it in the chat box below. And I'll make sure that I keep an eye on the questions as they're coming in. And if I think it's pertinent to the conversation that we're having at the time, I'll ask it there and then. And if not, then I'll probably wait until the end. I've had the pleasure to get to know Bethan over the last 6 months because we at Rise asked her to speak at an International Women's Day event that we wanted to host earlier this year. And unfortunately, due to the current situation, we couldn't continue with the event. But the reason why we wanted to ask Bethan to come along was because Carrie had read an article that Bethan had written on LinkedIn, which was boldly titled, "Where are all the women in tech? The mother of all algorithms." It had a fantastically positive reaction with over 1,700 views, 200 reactions, and over 40 comments. I wanted to just share my screen with you a second so you could see one of the comments. So do bear with me while I do this. Here, one of the ladies had written, "I am a woman in aircraft engineering, now at management level, and I'm usually the only female around the table. I get this. Now I find myself in a different situation and unexpectedly on the jobs market, having a mental crisis on whether I can be successful at the same level in a different industry. This article has reminded me that I can, and although it scares the hell out of me, those jobs are being applied for. Thank you, Bethan, for a great article that came at just the right time." Unfortunately, we don't have time to read the whole article itself, but I did want to read another little snippet that Bethan had written as part of that. So that's, let's have a look, there you go. She had written, "In the last 12 months, I have managed a growing team of now 20 people. I believe that's 32 now, since she had written the article. And those people still know shed loads more about technology than I do. But that doesn't faze me anymore. Why? Because I can manage, teach, and develop my team. I can make sound decisions based on the information I gather. I can communicate to a wide range of clients, stakeholders, and companies. I can launch and maintain social media campaigns and blogs about our department. And I can find customers, I can chair meetings with suppliers and talk about our needs. I can do so many things. And none of it is related to how proficient I am in the world of technology. This is my world, and sometimes I skirt around the edges, sometimes I have to go in deep, and sometimes I will fight to not have to learn something in the greatest of detail. But I still try to do it, and I do it my way." Really pleased to have you. So I wanted to just jump straight in with the questions actually, and ask you to tell us what ITV Content Delivery does and how your role as Head of Content Delivery fits into that.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'd say it's nice to be here, but I'm in the confines of my own home, so never mind. But yeah, so content delivery sits within the content supply and distribution division at ITV, but content delivery is pretty much ITV's content service provider. So we receive content in for either transmission or non-linear or for distribution, both here and in the UK and internationally. We process it and we deliver it on. And we also provide that service to existing old archive content as well. So we're based in Leeds, and we are literally sandwiched between 1.2 million tapes in the Leeds archive. So we've got loads of weird and wonderful machines which can transfer all those old legacy formats into a digital file, and we can even restore it back to its former glory. So it does lots of different things, but my department's split into 4 different teams. So you've got content in, content processing, content out, and late and live. So the latter, late and live, they're responsible for capturing all of ITV's live content. So Good Morning Britain, This Morning, Loose Women, Love Island, and they make everything available for the hub and other platforms. And the other 3 teams are responsible for what I've just mentioned, basically getting the right content delivered in the right way at the right time. So it's fairly fast paced and keeps us busy.
Cool, good. Well, we're in the current situation with COVID-19, and obviously lots of people are working from home now and remote working. So how has that impacted the way that you and your team work now?
Apart from the weight gain, Tanya, yeah, it's had a massive impact on us on so many different levels, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, and one that changes very, very frequently as well. So on a team level and in work, it's meant everyone's working from home, apart from just one person who's physically in the Leeds office on a daily basis. So shout out to Temi there. We're also doing lots of different and additional work because we're trying to support ITV in filling those schedules during the time where a lot of the live content has been disrupted. But yeah, amazingly, we've kind of been able, well, we've been able to sustain the same service and output to both internal and external clients in different ways, but the quantity and the quality has been the same, if not more actually, which is really impressive. I think on a team personal level, I think they're really struggling with the lack of people around them, which I'm sure is the same for everybody else. But when you're used to being surrounded by 30 odd people every day, it leaves a big team shaped hole in people's days, really. And it's also quite a fairly young team, so I think they're finding it quite hard because it's a very friendly and social group, and again, nothing's really filling that void. So we're trying really hard to make remote working as fun as possible. So we're doing competitions and quizzes, and we have something called Fika in our department, which normally in the office, someone takes it in turns to bring in cake or bake, and we sit down, we have a cup of tea, and we do it on a Monday morning, and it kind of just lets us reconnect for the week ahead. So we're still doing those things, and we're doing things like keepy uppy challenges, and I'm going to make them dress up on a hangout next week. So lots of things to try and keep the team spirit alive. And then, yeah, me personally, it has had a big impact on me. I think especially in the last couple of weeks. I very recently had to have an honest conversation with my line manager to say, yeah, this is very, very hard. You know, my husband runs a heating business, and he's started slowly to go back to work, and I'm trying to balance having 2 kids in the house. One's 3, so she's not interested in craft making or watching films, and the 6-year-old who is really missing her classmates and the fact that I am not her teacher. And that's whilst trying to do a full-time job, and it's a full-time job which is still relatively new to me, and one it has got busier because of the COVID situation. So, you know, I'm physically and mentally not being able to be at the top of my game, and yeah, the pressure's started to show, and I knew I had to sort of deal with it. So, you know, I had that honest conversation, but you know, it just makes me human.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's having a profound effect on various different people in various different ways.
I think, you know, you've done such a great job so far, and all I would say is try not to beat yourself up about it. And you know, there's only so much that you can do, and it's amazing that actually you're still instilling that culture from the physical workplace into the virtual workplace. And it sounds like you've managed to carry that across really well. So well done you and the rest of the team, because that takes a lot of effort actually to do, because obviously you've got the pressures of keeping things, you know, on air, or, you know, getting things delivered and getting all the technicalities of the delivery of what you do right. But you can only do that well when your team are feeling well and they're on point. So yeah,
absolutely. And I you know, I would expect them to be honest with me if they're struggling, or if they, you know, and motivation wise, it's very, very different. So yeah, it's great that we've had this kind of result, really.
That's really good. Hats off to you. We've had a lot of conversations, and as I mentioned in the introduction, we've got to know each other quite well over the last 6 months, and you've always referred to yourself as a lifer at ITV. Can you talk us through your other roles and how those roles have led to where you are now?
Yeah. So I feel like I've grown up with ITV. So I started life it was Yorkshire Television at the time, back in 2005, writing the EPG, the Electronic Programme Guide. I don't know how many of you remember that.
I do.
So I was, oh, good. So I was responsible for writing the synopsis of all the different programs. That was my first ever job, and actually a bit of a funny story to tell you. I moved on from that job actually shortly after. I accidentally wrote that someone had gone to jail for licking his brother. It should have actually been killing his brother. Must have been a soap or something, but I'd got the L and the K the wrong way around. Luckily it got spotted before it went out, but that's a fond memory of that job.
Hilarious. Sorry. I shouldn't laugh, but that is hilarious.
I know. Everyone has those, I'm hoping everyone has those moments. And then I spent some time scheduling in the Men and Motors channel. Again, I don't know if anyone would remember that, or ever had however watched that, but there was some interesting titles on that channel. And then I moved on to ITV's media logistics unit from there, and that I loved. You know, I thought it was kind of my calling. I was working with tapes, vans and people, and I loved it. And I kind of really knew my stuff in that role, you know, and I knew who I needed to speak to get to get a tape transmitted 2 hours before transmission, and begging them to play it so we didn't have to change the schedules. It was so different back then. Anyway, so then after that, after a bit of time there, I got offered an amazing opportunity by Helen Stevens, who offered me an opportunity to work on ITV's project to kind of go digital. It wasn't the first project to go digital, and it wasn't the last, but it was trying to get ITV at the forefront of becoming tapeless. So I learned a huge amount on that project, and I got exposure to a lot of different parts of the business. I was still fairly young. I was 26, and you know, hadn't probably learnt the life lessons that asking for help doesn't mean you're weak or a failure. So there were times where I felt a bit out of my depth, because it was the first time I'd have been on a company-wide project, but it taught me a lot. And then after about a year, I came back onto my ops team back in media logistics, and a supervisory position came up. And I'd always wanted to progress, so I went for it and I got it. And I worked in that role for about 18 months before then applying for the manager's position, which had also come up. And that nearly coincided with me becoming pregnant with my first baby. So I had Anya, and I had 13 months off, and came back into my team. But you know, it had changed, and I had changed. I'd become a mum. So yeah, it was tricky getting my feet back under the table again and feeling confident, the confidence I'd felt before I'd left. You know, that I could lead a team again despite not being there for the last year or so. So yeah, and then after a couple of years back, I fell pregnant with Jessie. There's no more babies now, by the way, that's it. and I had another year off with Jessie, and I came back, and again things have changed, as everyone knows in our industry. It changes so fast and nothing stays the same. So actually I didn't go back to my old role. I went on to a project and that was called the content supply chain. So it was, and it was a stark transition from my life in ops onto a project role, because I was also dealing with, dealing from the jump from one child to two at home and a full-time job, and it's a big jump, and it was very different. I wasn't part of a team anymore, and I wasn't yet confident at what I was doing because it was so new. So I didn't feel like I'd found my place to shine again. But then luckily an opportunity came up to manage content delivery. Again, it would be putting myself into the unknown, where a lot of people probably knew a lot more than me. It just seemed to be becoming a trend. But yeah, I mean, at the time, the whole kind of output of the department really intimidated me. It was so much more technical than I was used to, and the jargon and the 3-letter acronyms that were flying around. Yeah, it kind of made my head spin a bit. And but I did, and I think I mentioned this in the blog, when I first started in that role, and it wasn't even 2 years ago now, I really questioned what I was doing, managing one of ITV's technical departments. And there were times where I felt like a fraud, but that's kind of where that part of the blog came from. But I can do this and I can do that, and I can add so much value to the department. So I've the last 18 months I've kind of not only found but really love my work self again. I've organized exhibitions, I've kind of been out and finding new clients, I've strengthened existing ones. I manage stakeholders and suppliers. I've been lucky enough to fly out to Love Island to understand how live capture works. I've continued to kind of grow and build the team to what it is now through a really big kind of period of change. So yeah, it's been in this role when I've kind of started turning that self-doubt around. I've been very lucky to have a great manager who's kept helping me to continually learn and build and improve. So yeah, I've been very lucky to have that unwavering support. So when the opportunity for head of came up at the end of last year, I've never wanted anything so much. So I went for it and I got it, and I've been doing the role since January, so it's still fairly new. But I've got a great team, very good team, and it feels like we've kind of grown together over the last 2 years. Like I say, a lot of change has happened. We've got a lot of new people in, but we've got a great kind of mutual respect and hardworking ethic, so it works.
It's really good to hear the kind of whole journey, not just kind of the last few years, but from start to finish. And huge congratulations to you as well on getting the head of role, because actually when we approached you to do the event, you were content delivery manager at the time, and then was promoted. So yeah, congratulations once again. I also love the honesty and vulnerability that you've shown just now, talking through all of those experiences, and especially the EPG incident. So I mean, you have been really kind of thank you for being open and honest in that way. But what are your thoughts about being openly honest and vulnerable as someone who is in a successful career now?
I think no matter what career you're in or what level you're at, I think it's fundamentally one of the most important things you can be, being authentic. I think on both professional and a personal level. And I don't think enough people recognize authenticity as being a skill. But what I found is that when I've really spoken my mind and I've been brutally honest, even if you don't know how it's going to be received, it's one of the most human things you can do. People respond really well to honesty. I know I do, you know, and it's an ongoing thing. It's being honest isn't always easy. As I mentioned earlier, it's not, you know, asking for help last week wasn't kind of the highlight of my career, but it has to be done, and I wasn't able to be me. And so yeah, I think it's incredibly important, and it's served me well over the years, and I'm going to continue to be that way, I think. Well, I know, yeah.
Yeah, you will, I'm sure you will. And I think as well, it's not just about being open and honest on the vulnerability side, but being open and honest at all times when you have to make those tough decisions that actually may not be decisions that everybody is going to like, but you know it's for the good of the business.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know, I've mentioned that article, the blog that you had written on LinkedIn in the introduction, and just to remind everybody of the title, it was "Where Are All the Women Working in Tech? The Mother of All Algorithms." And as I said, it had an amazing reaction, had some great comments. So what was it that actually spurred you on to write that article?
I was feeling brave. I think it was the first time I'd ever put a blog or an article out there on LinkedIn, especially. But essentially, I just wanted to encourage people, I suppose, like me, who didn't necessarily know a huge amount about technology, to find a career that they loved, like I have now. And in September last year, we were going through a period where we had to bring in a lot of people in a very short space of time, and I had to hire 13 people in 5 weeks. Wow. And so this is when we were bringing ITV's content services back in house. So you know, there was a kind of a big push to get a lot of people in a short space of time, and so I was doing a lot of interviewing. And actually, that by the time that happened, I was on kind of my 5th round of interviewing, so I'd had a few rounds of recruiting before that. So had been sifting through CVs daily and interviewing, but as I mentioned, because I'd been doing it previously, I think I was probably already on a slightly subconscious mission to diversify my team. Again, you know, just with people who had transferable skills, and you know, they didn't matter if they, you know, they didn't have a media degree or, you know, that kind of thing. I just wanted something different. And so the blog seemed to kind of naturally fall to the question, why is it only young techie guys that are applying for these roles? Because I certainly didn't fall into that bracket, and I can still add plenty of value. So, you know, why should we have to keep on, you know, why should they be the only ones that are applying and getting these jobs? So yeah, I was slightly nervous about putting the blog out there, because I was basically laying myself bare, saying, well, I'm not technically qualified for this, but it's okay, because look at what I can do. And I was also quite hesitant about making the gender point, but like you say, it got a lot of reactions, and over 1,700 people read it, and a lot of people reacted to it. And I got a lot of messages today that a lot of people really connected with that line of thinking. Yeah. It obviously caught the attention of Rise, you guys too, so that was a brilliant thing for me, a complete bonus. But yeah, during that recruitment drive, I hired 13 people in total, and 7 of which happened to be women. So, you know, 42% of my department are now female, and there was just 4 women back in 2018 when I first started. But I kind of want to make the point, I hope it goes without saying, that it's not just because I wanted females. They were the best candidates for the job and had those transferable skills, which I was open to. So I was really lucky to find them. But yeah, it was a really positive experience writing that blog.
Yeah, I think it was, and I think it just goes to show, actually, when you put yourself out there as, you know, and being being bold and being brave, what that can lead to, because, you know, like we said, it caught the attention of Rise. We asked you to speak at the event, which unfortunately we couldn't do, but we're doing this now. So, you know, there's been an announcement today, actually, that of the new mentees, and you're one of them. So,
I am.
you know, again, congratulations on that. And as a mentee alumni, is that the right term? I don't know.
Yes.
But, yeah, I can tell you will have an amazing experience. So I can't wait to see what happens with that for you.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. Very lucky.
Yeah, it's going to be good. You've mentioned diversity just now, actually, and the efforts that you put into diversifying your team. And yes, you know, you made the point of saying that you didn't just want women for the sake of women, that they were actually they had the skills that you needed, and they were the best people for the job. But what one change would most improve diversity in technical careers in general, be it broadcast or another field, for you?
It's a tricky one, and I think it starts with educating people about the fact that these jobs exist in the first place. I think that's probably one of the first big stepping stones to solving that. There's lots of jobs out there behind the camera, behind the scenes, that play fundamental parts in bringing content and the wonder that is TV to people. And you know, we obviously all know all this, being in the industry, but I don't think people outside the industry necessarily do know that. And I think that knowledge has slowly improved over the years, but it is very apparent now that there is a skills gap. My department worked very closely with both universities in Leeds, the Leeds Uni and Leeds Beckett, and we take student placements every year. And we've actually hired people once they've graduated from the scheme, so it's very worthwhile for both parties. Yeah, and they hold the university holds an employer forum every year, basically where they get all the placement companies into one room, say thank you for doing it, but also, are we producing the right kind of student? Do they have the right knowledge, the right skills, the right you know, personalities almost? Sometimes we say no, they can't look at us in the eye, but that's another story. But yeah, one thing that did come up this year was diversity, and the numbers were really shocking. And it's something that, you know, I definitely want to help with if we can. So yeah, I think the obvious place to start is schools, and helping with that education. One of my friends is a deputy head at a local primary school. And again, off the back of the blog, actually, she'd asked me to come in and talk to my job about two classes of 7 and 8 year olds. This was back in January. I did take a lot of Percy pigs with me, but aside from that, they did, I think, I learned a lot about you know, what we do in television and what other kind of fields there are, instead of just seeing something on the screen. And also linked to that, I've also been asked to represent ITV on the Rise Up board, which obviously you know all about, but for everyone else, it's about the Rise Up board is trying to encourage and educate children by going into schools and educating them about roles in television or technology. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. Hopefully we can still continue with it, despite, well, who knows with what's going on at the moment. Schools are a faraway thought, isn't it, sadly?
Yeah, it is. But yeah, that, you know, that's great that you've got involved in that initiative too, and I believe the same, that that's one of the things that will help. But we've actually had an interesting question come in from Penny Westlake, and she asks, do you think the way recruitment job descriptions are written can discourage women from applying?
Yes, I think definitely they can. There's also that statistic, Wendy, that don't know if you've heard it, and this isn't completely accurate, but I know that women when men read a job description, they will go for that job even if they only meet, you know, less than half of that job description. Whereas women have to, I think, meet at least 80% in their heads before they will even consider going for that role. So yes, I think that the way job descriptions are written has a massive impact on it. And we're very lucky within ITV because we've got a resourcing team who kind of really spend time with us to find out what the job is, and they kind of build up the big picture. Obviously the detail is in there about what they have to do, but I think they're very clever about presenting what the job ultimately is, but yeah, I think it really can have a massive impact.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for that question. It's a good one, that one. Right, so next up I wanted to talk about was actually your original presentation, because as somebody who was producing the event back in March that we were going to do, you had entitled it "Show Me How Big Is Your Brave." And as I've gotten to know you, I do think that you are one of life's brave people, in the sense that you're happy to be so honest and open about what it's like to be a mother of 2 young daughters and working full time. And you mentioned some of this earlier on in our conversation, but you were also going to share with the audience at the time the impact a certain TED Talk had on the kind of role model that you wanted to be for your daughters. And whilst I know you're really happy to share this today, I was a little bit hesitant about asking you about this on this webinar, because, you know, we never ask a successful man or a man at a media event, you know, what it means to be a working dad and the kind of role model that they want to be for their children. It just never comes up in conversation. But I think in these times, particularly when, as you mentioned already, people are juggling homeschooling their kids as well as working, I really do think it's important for the industry to hear about the experiences of others right now. So would you be willing to share that with us today?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as my original chat in March on International Women's Day was about being brave, it was because I was going to be standing on a stage completely exposed, and it wasn't something I ever thought I would do because I have an irrational fear of public speaking. But Rise had approached me to do it, and because it was International Women's Day, I just pushed myself, and I wanted to share the thing, I suppose, that got me there in the first place, which was my blog. And I suppose I figured that was because it was about being brave and just saying about what I wanted to say, no matter what the reaction was going to be. And Brave also is a song that it's one of my favorite running tracks, actually, and the lyrics mean a lot to me, and it's kind of got me through a lot. And I'm actually going to just read you, actually. So it's by a lady called Sarah Bareilles. I never know how to pronounce her last name, but the song's called Brave, and it says, everybody's been there, everybody's been stared down by the enemy, fallen for the fear and done some disappearing. Bow down to the mighty, don't run, stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you can let the light in. Show me how big your brave is. Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. So yeah, it was kind of based around that. And like you say, I'd watched a TED Talk by a female firefighter in New York, and she did an amazing TED Talk about raising girls to be just as brave as our boys are, to seek adventure, and to, as parents, to stop warning them to be so careful and just be as brave as boys are, because I think we naturally and subconsciously do tell them to be more careful than boys. So having 2 daughters makes me very conscious of the role model that I am for them, because, you know, we all know we end up just like our mothers. Which is a good thing. My mum's watching, so, you know, I'd be very happy if I turned out like my mum. But yeah, no, I want them to be better than me, and that applies to silly things like catching the spider. I hate spiders, but I make myself catch them. Like going on horrendously spinny rides at the theme park, even though it makes me feel like I've drunk 3 bottles of wine. And then the bigger things like this, like public speaking, I know I've been let off the hook here big time because I've not stood on a podium at the front of Amazon with over 100 of people in front of me, which is what this was going to be originally. And obviously this is a lot easier, but I'm still broadcasting myself to you lovely people, because yeah, I want to teach my girls about how important it is to A, speak your mind, and B, do it confidently. But yeah, I suppose to address the women's point you make, it's a bit of a necessary evil, I think. Yeah, you wouldn't ask a man that, but maybe people should. Why, why not? And if it doesn't apply to them, they can say so, and there'd be no shame in that. But I think these things do need to change. And like I say, I want to be a positive role model in that respect, especially for the young girls in my department. I want to show them that you can have a successful career and have a family. And I'm conscious, I don't want to say, women can have it all. And then at the same time say, but it's really hard. It's okay to say that you're struggling. Of course it's hard, but it's doable. And I suppose, women having both kids and a career, it's been in debate for a long time now. But I think there's still a kind of unconscious bias about women's roles in families. And I'm passionate about doing what I can to try and change it for future generations, especially having 2 girls myself. I'd like to think that by the time they get a bit older, that it is different. And I think things are changing slowly. I think society is starting to sit up and realize that, hey, men can do this as well, and they do it, and they are doing it. And then I see there's these posts on social media where there's 2 pictures side by side, and you've got a mum who's got a small child in one hand, and she's carrying a baby on the front, and she's got a load of shopping bags, and the quote is, wow, she's got her hands full. And then the other picture on the other side is a man, exactly the same picture. He's got a toddler and he's got a baby on his front, he's got shopping bags, and the caption is, what an amazing dad. And it's still out there. And I was chatting to some of the girls last year at our Christmas party, and they were congratulating me on my recent promotion to head of. And at some point I must have said something along the lines of, yeah, I am so lucky, because if James, who's my husband, didn't do his bit, with the house and the kids and everything, life in general, I wouldn't be able to have this job or do this job. And Lorna, who's in my team, she's 22, and she said, Bethan, why do you call yourself lucky? That's how it should be equal. And she's right, of course.
Yeah, she is.
She really is. But in reality, and I suppose it's very important to say it's my reality, it might be very, very different for other people, but in my experience, it feels very rare to have a partner who takes a completely equal share in being a parent and also having a career, and both of you having a career. It might be that there's more of a balance in London than there is in the north. I don't know, but I know I definitely feel in the minority within my local network of friends and colleagues when it comes to having a career and being a mum. And it's something that I've battled with a lot, mainly because of that, guilt word. I've been in conflict with that for a long, long time. But that's society feeding me false information. It's not something that I'm going to be teaching the girls. I want them to be proud and empowered about their work and having a family, and not feel guilty for it.
Yeah. Oh, good for you. And you know, it's nice to hear that. And you know, and like I said, I was kind of and ahhing about asking that question, but I think I was, you know, I was kind of divulging my own kind of personal thoughts, I guess. Yeah, I'm a woman in my mid-30s. I'm still single, but it's been that thing at the back of my mind that, do I want kids? Do I want to be a mom? And actually, you know, I better make my mind up pretty soon because I'm 36, you know. And but then it's that thing of, you know, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to cope. So it's really, I just wanted to be able to share someone like your story who's doing it. And yes, it's hard, but as you say, it's doable.
Yeah, and you know, next time, do ask a man that question. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope they, you know, because maybe they want to be asked, you know, because like I say, there will be men out there who are doing that as well, and they should get some of the credit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, my brother actually, he's had a little baby boy in November, and God, he's brought us so much joy. And you know, he's been at home now, and you know, he is doing his fair share, and his girlfriend is actually still on maternity leave, but you know, he will, in between calls, just, you know, take the baby, and if Zephyr's kind of crying or screaming, and Bex is having to do the cooking or do the meals or what have you, you know, he's taking over, and he's doing his bit. So I think, yeah, there is a change starting to happen for sure.
Yeah.
Right, we've got just under 10 minutes left. If anybody does want to ask a question, because I'm quite mindful that I'm just kind of chatting away to Bethan as if we're in her living room, and I've not vocalized the fact that you can ask questions. So please do. We've got a few more minutes, and we do have time. Bethan, I did kind of ask the majority of questions I wanted to ask you, but I do have a few more as well. So I'll go ahead and ask the next one, which was you know, the whole London centric thing, I guess, in terms of, you've never worked in London, and you're clearly proud to be working for ITV in Leeds. And what would you like to see happen in the industry once we get to a point of settling in the new normal? Because you know, obviously remote working is a big thing now. So
yeah, I think, well, before COVID, that's going to become a very used phrase, isn't it? Before COVID, it feels like, or it felt like, the industry was kind of starting to look up and realise the potential outside the norm of London when it comes to the media and broadcast. Obviously, Channel 4 have made Leeds their home. DAZN is a huge growing brand in the city. I mean, ITV's been there for decades. But you know, the fact that they put their content services in my office is fantastic. It's a real kind of boost to Leeds ITV. Obviously Sky is huge there, and yeah, it feels like the industry is really diversing away from London, and that's great. A massive advocate of it. However, you know, who knows how the COVID situation is going to impact I mean, it's going to change the way we work, travel, do business. So the future is going to be so different to what it was when we left it behind. So it's tricky. It's tricky to know how things are going to unfold. But you know, I hope that you know, the regions keep growing despite it, in spite of it.
Yeah,
because they were making good progress.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. We have actually had a few questions come in. There's two questions that are similar, so I'll ask both of them, but they're a similar question. So one person asks, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? But then another lady asks, really inspirational listening to this. Can I ask, do you have a career or 5-year plan, or is it more of a case of seeing what opportunities come up and grabbing them?
Well, thank you for your questions, but yeah, I think in terms of where do I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years, that is a big part of why I applied to the Rise mentorship, mentor, I can't even say it.
Mentoring scheme.
Thank you. That's a big reason why I applied to that, because, you know, if my boss is watching, you know, you probably say, tell them you should be looking at my job. And I know that's the right answer. But in all honesty, I don't know. And I guess it depends on a lot of things about what the future holds, and obviously my girls. But yeah, I'm hoping that I'm going to really find some answers and start to put some future and structure into my career now. And I'm hoping that Rise are going to help me do that, because it's definitely somewhere I need a little bit of direction. But I want to take more time out to do things like this, and you know, spend some time making some good in some areas, hopefully. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, the next question is interesting, because just as you were saying that, I was like, maybe she could be the CEO of ITV one day. Because the next question is from Anna Lockwood. Hi, Anna. The CEO of ITV is Carolyn McCall, a very successful businesswoman and a rare leader of a media business, and she has 3 kids too. Any lessons you and us have learned or can learn from her success? And just to let you know, Bethan, we've only got a few minutes left, so that will be the last question.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I love the fact that we have Carolyn as our CEO, and it is a question that I have also wanted to ask her, because I've known she's had is it 2 or 3 kids, and it's always the question that I want to ask people in those positions. How have you done it, and how have you not physically how have you done it, but how have you got past some of the challenges that were presented to you, and you know, when times when you thought, oh God, should I be doing both, and can it be one or the other? But yeah, it's a question that I do want to ask her, but the opportunities never come up. Maybe it will one day. But in terms of tips for me, no, I think I just try and, you know, take one day at a time, and like I say, just be authentic, and be honest about the reality of things. I think that we live in a Instagram, social media, picture perfect world, and it's not real, and that can translate into the professional environment as well. So I think always be mindful of that.
Yeah. I wonder if she's written a book, actually, Carolyn McCall. I haven't checked, but I have been interested in her career path, and she used to work for The Guardian and EasyJet as well, didn't she?
Yeah, EasyJet, yeah.
Okay, well, we're coming up to 10 to, so I'm not gonna, there was one more question, but I'm not going to ask it because I'm quite mindful that the IABM have another webinar that's starting at 4 p.m. and they need to do a crossover. But I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, Bethan, and I'm hoping that everybody else who's joined us on this webinar has too. It's been really insightful, and thank you very much. So I believe that this webinar has been recorded, so the IABM will distribute the link for that soon. And I also meant to say that we'll find a way of being able to share your article and the link to your LinkedIn blog with everybody that's attended today as well. So I'll share that with the IABM when they share the recording as well with you all, so you'll get to see what the article actually said.
Great.
Okay, well, thank
you very much. I really appreciate that, and it was nice to chat.
Yes, thanks you.
Thanks to everyone for listening.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.